Hey guys, Pedro here to tell you about the latest from Nails, Every Bridge Burning, out August 30th on Nuclear Blast. The album has 10 tracks, 20 minutes in length, and this is the band's fourth full-length studio album. They are an American hardcore punk band. As far as the design goes, this album feels very dense and very compact, at least as it starts, and it stays somewhat in that format throughout the entire duration of itself. But there are moments within this record, there are moments within songs where there is a little bit of clarity, where that density becomes a little bit more diluted and you're able to see a different side of their sound and a different side of what the band can do. This makes the album a lot more dynamic, and it also makes the album more fluid. Having these pockets also adds to the way you digest this album, making that experience slightly easier. So when you put it all together, the format of this record, the design of this record, not only gives playability to the album, but it allows the experience to be a lot more enjoyable. As far as the sound is concerned, this is a sonic assault on your ears. It's an album that has that distortion, that dirt, that grime, that unpolished nature to their sound, and it comes across in such a brutal way and in such a relentless way, song in and song out, really becoming the spinal cord of the entire record. The guitar sound creates this massive wall of sound that just feels demolishing. It just feels like it's taking no prisoners. Now, having those moments within key tracks, that density, that guitar sound changes and you approach it with a more traditional hardcore riffing style, definitely gives a different experience to the songs, and it obviously impacts the record in its globality. It also makes the overall guitar sound feel a lot more textured and not necessarily linear and not necessarily one-dimensional, which is exactly what you want from a fourth record. You want to introduce some growth to the way you approach songs without necessarily destroying what the DNA of the band is all about. And the drums are also another element that really helps with the sound on this album. Carlos Cruz from Warbringer, he was the drummer on this record, and he brings a different approach, he brings a different style. I felt like the drums really helped the guitars feel even bigger, even more powerful. But on the back end, it also created some solidity in terms of the way the sound is presented, and obviously also added a slight amount of clarity to the way that back end of the sound is put forward. It not only makes these songs move in one direction or towards the listener, but it also gives these songs a massive size. This is not a record that sound-wise, due to the nature of the guitars and the nature of the drums working together, it doesn't feel narrow. It is compact, but it doesn't feel narrow. The songs still feel like they have a nice size and a nice width with a lot of volume and a lot of aggression and intensity within that volume. Obviously, the vocals add to that experience, they add to that intensity, they add to that aggression. I thought they were phenomenal throughout this entire record. Very consistent in terms of what they give you, not necessarily always consistent in terms of the approach. The approach changes ever so slightly here and there. It stays almost linear, but with enough ripples, with enough nuances to add to that overall movement that the record had, to add to that overall mobility of the record, but always keeping in mind the nature of the track, almost trying to represent vocally what the track is already represented sonically. So great connection between those elements to really get the most out of the vocal performance. Creating a record that, in my opinion, has a lot of great qualities to it. If you're not a fan of the band or you're discovering the band with this record, this might be a great record to discover the band with, because I feel like within their discography, this might be their easiest album to get into. It has the most amount of pockets where you can find some reprieve, where you can find some breaks, and you can connect with some riffs here and there that become a little bit groovier at times and a little bit more hooky because of that groove that comes with them. Overall, painting a picture that's a lot easier to see, that it's a lot easier to connect with. When you put it all together, you have an album that has that playability that it needs to have, but it also has that enjoyment attached to it, that it's an album that's easy to listen to, or as easy as it can be considering it is a Nails record. So it's an album overall that has a lot of qualities, and it puts forward all of them on a platter for you to enjoy across 10 songs in 20 minutes. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Every Bridge Burning. Very aggressive wall of sound. That dense experience in that wall of sound is definitely there. The vocals help break ever so slightly that dense wall, but it takes nothing away from how heavy and how powerful the overall track is. It helps dilute, or it helps remove a few breaks, but it doesn't completely demolish that wall. It has a linear motion. This song is very linear until the midway point, almost repetitive on how linear it is, and then at the midway point, this is one of those tracks that infuses this more hardcore slam dance style riff, still with some dirt, still with some distortion, still feeling unpolished, but not as unpolished and not as gritty as the rest of the sound that came before, and the sound that overall represents this album. So having that pocket there, that riff at the midway point, really changes the track and really changes your perception of even the record, because this is the third song on the album. So having this song come in earlier on in the experience really allows you to see that this is going to be an album that's going to have a lot more movement, and it's not going to be consistently linear from start to finish. A track that also has great drum sound all around. Next we have Give Me the Painkiller. I love the guitar riff all around on this song. Still a track that has that heaviness to it, that has that wall of sound. It gets minimized at times, not by the vocals in this case, but rather by that more clear riffing that really takes hold of this song, and it allows this song to separate itself from all others, the ones that came before and the ones that come after. The drums feel heavy, they feel thick, they're impactful, they add to the overall experience, they add to the overall volume of the song. This is a track that has great vocals as well, and because of that riff, you start to see some developments of grooviness throughout the song every time that riff comes to the forefront. And then to emphasize how important the texture of the guitar sound is on this track, you have a song that has a solo that really breaks away from everything that is happening. The solo on this song is kind of the exclamation mark on the track. Last but not least, I Can't Turn It Off. This is easily one of my favorite tracks all around from this record. It's one of the most dynamic songs that the album has from start to finish. The drums are perhaps the most powerful that you will hear in the entire record. At least on this track, the way they come across in the mix, you can hear them a lot better, and you can also feel them a lot better. Altogether, a little bit more of an open song. It has a little bit more room to breathe. It still has that filth attached to it. It still has that unpolished nature attached to it, but the guitar sound on this track gives you enough pockets of slight clarity that makes this a more all-around, easier to listen to, easier to digest, open sounding song that allows the guitars to be the calling card, but with a different type of card, with a different type of experience, and that allows the track on its own to really stand out. And this is what the big picture of this record is all about. 10 songs that have individual characteristics, but at the same time put together, they create that Nails experience. Hit me up in the comment section. Let me know your thoughts on this band, on this record, on the singles. Dying to hear what you guys have to say. And I'll see you all at the next one. Take care, guys.